Welcome to the Board Game Barbecue, the only podcast where it's a prerequisite to mispronounce the names of the games. You've got Conor here, and tonight I'm joined with two other members of the Board Game Barbecue, and I'm not quite sure why they've left us three alone. I've got Adrian and Mitch. How you going, boys?
Oh, look, with you two, how could I be anything else but fantastic?
I don't know. But yeah, I was trying to think of something really witty and negative to say, but I couldn't do it in time. So fail. Good, Conor, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good for a Sunday. And with us tonight, we've got, fresh off a relatively recent successful Kickstarter, head of Platypus Industries, friend of the podcast, none other than Matt Aslin. How you going there, Matty?
Hey, everybody. Very well. Good to be back.
Nah, it's good to have you back, man. And I know you've been super busy, and I can see just from the backgrounds there, you're not in your usual abode. Whereabouts are you at?
Down on the island of Phillip Island.
Yeah.
Hanging out with some penguins. For
That's
a nice,
right.
Quiet break.
In the lovely state of Victoria. So, Adrian and Mitch, when you coming to visit Victoria next?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure Daniel Andrews will let me in after last time I was down there. So I don't know.
That's not WA.
Yeah, true.
No offense to our WA listeners as well. So, Matt, it's been a hot minute since you've been on, but you've been pretty busy. So, I was wondering if you could maybe run us through what your last, 12 months have been like, because it was Oceania Month that you were last on.
Yeah, it was 12 months of pretty hectic head down, bum up design work on Drop Bears as it's coming closer to Kickstarter. So art, graphic design, sculpts, so many new things. It's been really crazy.
So tell us a bit about Drop Bears. And so you're saying it's on its way to Kickstarter. Do we have a rough date yet, a target date, or how close are we?
I'd literally just started carving it in stone, and then China went into all these lockdowns because of COVID and things. So,
yeah.
But we're in the final stages of having the reviewer copies made.
Mm-hmm.
So there's copies of those being made in China, all looking really snazzy and professional.
Mm-hmm.
And once they're completed, they'll be shipped out to reviewers. So that's the last step. Everything else is ready to go or in its final steps.
Excellent. And I guess you'll wait for those reviews to come back and stick some of those into your campaign then as well.
Yeah, I don't need all of them back, just a few to get us started, and there'll be a few that trickle through, and that we're going to do some live plays, and it's going to be a pretty crazy set of days. Still looking how many days to do, whether it's 21 or 30.
Yep.
Or 28. It's a long 28 days to do 28, though.
Mm.
Yeah, and I imagine that you probably learn a fair bit after your campaign of the Ratcatcher. So what did you learn during that campaign that you've sort of fed into this one that's been super helpful?
Oh, so many things. Like preparedness. You need everything done. Like even some of the updates and things like that are already in editing and prep work. Like there's nothing not ready to go. Like all the 3D files for any sculpts are done. All the graphics is done. There's I think only about a handful of illustrations that are still being done at the moment. All freelance work's finished. It's just trying to make sure all those things are done so that I can focus and be there during the campaign and post-campaign. I'm working with the backers on making meaningful changes and not sort of playing catch up.
It must be a massively different experience this time around, though, because you're working with a team of people, like comparative to the first time when you just did like everything, right? So
cat wrangling this time.
Yeah. So what's it like this time working with a crew of people? Like, what's the differences, the challenges, the advantages? Like, what's it all about like that?
Yeah, it's a really double-sided coin working with everybody. Though saying that, I've been very fortunate to work with who I'm working with. Everybody I've worked with around the globe on this project's been absolutely fantastic and has really added to the campaign. And I haven't had any speed bumps or problems or anything like that I can speak of. And I've been very fortunate to work with the professionals I've been working with and some of the new people to the industry that I've worked with as well. So it's been exciting. I've been learning a lot more management skills and art direction and things which I'm really enjoying as well, and hope to get to do a bit more in the future.
Mm. And in terms of the actual game itself, for those of us that have played Ratcatcher, obviously, I don't think this is a solo game. This is now multiplayer. What are we sort of expecting from the game side of things?
Lots of drop bears.
Yeah.
Death without elimination, something that's really exciting in the game as well, because we did want you to fear for your camper's life and actually have that death in the game. So it took a little bit of tweaking and designing and lots of playtesting to make sure that non-elimination death could be in the game. Lots of exploration. There's lots of effort going into the way that you earn the points that you need to be victorious through the game as well. And then also testing 2 expansions that'll come out during the campaign as well, and making them compatible, because they offer you an alternative way of playing the game using the core mechanics out of the core set.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I'm always interested with expansions with Kickstarters, because I think the jaded consumer would maybe say, well, why aren't they included in the game, or why, or whatever. But I mean, you've sort of sold it as you still use the core mechanics. So what's the thought process into going, well, this is base game, this is expansion content, and this is expansion content B?
I think the biggest thing is logistics, to be honest. At the moment, trying to make sure that you make box A, box B, box C. If I release each one of those at a different time, there's a whole lot more logistics that has to go into each one of them. And technically that will cost the eventual owner of the game a lot more in the long run, rather than just being able to grab it all at once and bundle it all together and it's just all there. And they don't have to either. Like, if they just want one or they just want 2, like, that option's up to them and they can do it. But again, that option to save a little bit of money along the way is there. And hopefully they get enough through it that we make enough, and they'll be on shelves later on if you want to pick one up later on at your friendly local or anything like that as well. It's just not restricting, and it's just easier to get all the artwork done at once, all the sculpts done at once, all the testing while you're testing's it heavy. And I've got all the backers as well that want to look through it during the campaign, and like post campaign, we can make changes. This stuff isn't carved into stone. It's a heavy clay at the moment. So we will be able to make meaningful changes with people focused on the whole project as a whole, because those expansions shouldn't be something that is so far out that it feels like a different game.
Yeah, for sure.
The Ratcatcher was obviously heavily involved in just pure solo gaming, right? And that sung to the solo gamers and the solo gamer market. Does this still see? Yeah, Mitch is pointing at himself. We're all pointing at Mitch. Do you think that this appeals to a different market, or do you think this also appeals to like a solo gamer market? Have you focused on a real play it solo one hero or 2-handed solo experience? Like, what's the changes involved with going from Ratcatcher to Drop Bears as an experience for your consumer?
I find the difference between designing a full solo game to a multiplayer game is actually a little bit easier to do multiplayers, because you don't have to explain as much when a player is doing it, because a player gets to make choices. When you're designing AI to function, there's a lot more explanation, because the player has to manage themselves and the AI has to make intelligent decisions through a deck of cards, dice, whatever. So the Drop Bears were AI anyway. So inserting the solo player into the game wasn't that tricky. It was trying to make it more unique rather than just playing one camper. There's a reason now that even if you play the game for multiplayer, like you purchase it and own it to play with your friends most of the time, that if you wanted to one night in the deep dark of the bush and you wanted to scare yourself, you can play solo, and it's a different experience. There is stuff that you do in the solo mode that you do not do in the core set.
That's cool.
Well, I know that next time Mitch goes off camping, I'm definitely going to like creep up behind his cabin or his hut and just like start shaking while he's playing Drop Bears.
You don't need to pretend you're a drop bear, Conor. You're already a Sasquatch.
I told you, keep my genealogy a secret, Mitch. That was the secret between you and me. Yeah. can't. What do they say? Don't work with children or animals. So I suppose that doesn't. I haven't included Mitch in either of those categories yet.
It's
So
right for me with that one.
So with
Oh,
the
dear.
Ratcatcher completely fulfilled and done, and then Drop Bear's now very close to dropping, no pun intended. Yeah, on the verge. Have you got stuff already in the future that you want to try and tackle? Are there different Australian animals that you want to try and use to kill civilians and stuff, or are you doing something different this time?
Cassowary,
Killer quackers.
Drop Bear is the first of a series of Australian highlights. So there's at least 2 more.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yes.
I'm actually doing concept art for number 2 at the moment. There's a bit of a break from doing more artwork for this at the moment. So we'll get started on that in development. So it'll use the same, again, that core value that exists in Drop Bears will exist in all of the games.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you play will be very different. Like even in game 2, it's an entirely different, it's a far more mythical, sci-fi sort of twist reality, I guess, more than where Drop Bears is a real urban legend style.
It's true. It's true, right? Like Drop Bears is rooted in fact, so there's no fantasy at all.
Game 2 is a real different one, and game 3 is quite a dark path that it's taking at the moment. So it's looking at quite a real horror genre for the third one. So just making sure that each of them's unique, that if you played one, you go, oh, I get what I'm doing in this one, but how you do it and some of the new mechanics and the opponents that you face are very different.
Cool.
That sounds.
I'm intrigued now.
Yeah,
I'm like racking my brain to think of like Australian horror creatures
That's
and what
really
they could be.
Horror people.
They're all based. It's quite clever how they're based around where I live and where I've lived in my life.
Right. Okay.
So, like, we're at the moment, Drop Bears is just the general Australiana things. Game 2 is closer, is a myth, is an actual myth that exists very close to where I live now in Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
And game 3 is from where I was originally born, up in the Northern Territory.
Ah, right.
Well, so I know this is the thing, right? So I know I'm not. You don't have to tell the listeners where you live, Matt, because we don't want you having like them dropping in and wanting to play games with you.
As long as they take care of your kids, they can stay as long as
But so where I used to live, there was a range called the Macedon Ranges. And there was rumors of like panthers living up there because apparently
yes, I know that one.
The story was that someone's like feral cat escaped from like a menagerie, and it was like massive. So
walked through some gamma radiation in the forest or something. Did
it? Feral cat.
Yeah.
It was green. It had purple trunks on.
Attitude.
That's actually when you were talking about Victoria, I was like, that's the one I can think of. But I'll have to keep thinking because
I'm thinking bunyip.
Yeah, that's what I was going to.
I still think that's one of my favorite Australian insults.
Yep, right. Yep, yeah.
Someone in Parliament used to call someone a bunyip. I can't remember.
I find it amazing how myths and stuff like that in modern times come about. So, like, some dude, obviously drunk, saw a cat, thought it was a bit bigger than what it was, and then he's told that story, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, it's the mythic panther. Yeah. It escaped from a zoo, right? And everyone's like, yeah, I heard that. And then how that just spreads to, like, a national level. Like, even, like, the Jersey Devil, I find the Jersey Devil very interesting and how that came to be. And the story behind it is actually incredibly dark. But, like, I find that that's still really interesting, that was a story that became now, like, a legend type thing, or a myth anyway. But, yeah, I just find those fascinating, how they all come out.
It's scary how easily they can happen, too.
Yeah.
I was actually on a four-wheel drive trip up in the Blue Mountains because in New South Wales we have a similar thing. It's the Blue Mountains panther. So it must be a mountain thing, right, that goes on.
Like,
and me and the mate, and so we're driving through a four-wheel drive trail on a camping trip, and we're talking about the Black Panther and all these myths and legends and things that had happened in the mountains, and whatever you do as you're driving along, and out of nowhere from the bushes on the side of the path,
the guy jump out and say Wakanda forever.
No,
because you said Black Panther. So
You ran him down without mercy.
it was a giant wombat.
oh wow.
Just burst out of the bushes and sort of went diagonally across the path towards our car and off the other side. I swear to God, 2 grown men have never screamed so loud in their lives. Nearly died of a heart attack.
Wombats are terrifying. They've killed more people on the roads than I think any other animal.
Yeah. Well, this one was listening to our conversation and just intentionally jumped out to scare the absolute bejesus out of us.
They've got a wicked sense of humour, those fat little buggers.
Yeah.
They're huge, right? They're like big units. Like they are stocky as.
The combat wombats.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they're great animals. I went to a zoo recently and saw a whole heap of them just like lounging around, and they are just, they're way bigger than I thought they were.
Yeah.
And they have
solid as.
In the wild. They're bloody everywhere.
Yeah.
and the ultimate defense mechanism of turning their backside onto whatever's going to hit them or attack them. It just, it shows a lot of intuition and evolutionary sort of tact as we've gone along, that they just moon whoever's trying to charge at them. I think that's pretty cool.
No mercy.
No mercy.
True Australians.
Well, it's sort of, I guess, like with drop bears and you're talking about your legends, I guess it's a bit like Australian cryptozoology, really, isn't it? Like there's all these urban myths and you go look at America.
That's where the idea came from, is there's so many games about everyone else's cryptids, and there's never any talk about the Australian stuff. I was like, we really need to get some more Aussie stuff out there. It's a little bit disappointing to see a lot of Australian designers, especially when they're choosing themes, to go even choosing American and European cryptids and different legends from all around the world, or even cultural, old civilizations and things like that from overseas, rather than even attempting to try and source things here, because there's so many interesting things here, from urban legends to actual history to even back into the Aboriginal cultures and history. Like, there's just I feel like there's so much rich nature and stories and legends here that it's just untapped.
And I think there's a massive appetite for that from people overseas.
100%.
It's our country. It comes with a bit of intrigue and a bit of mystery. And you see all these articles and things you'll see online about every animal in this country wants to kill you and so on. And people just think that there's brown snakes crawling over the harbour bridge 24/7. If you step outside the door, you're going to get trampled by a cassowary.
Ride kangaroos to work, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that as a result, surely would be a market for people saying, Australia's got that sort of bit of mystery, and if you just peel back the lid, there's so much in there to sort of explore. So no, I think it's great what you're doing, Matt.
Yeah, no, it's good fun to do, and I hope I get to do a few bits more in the future with it as well. But at the moment, those 3 are the focus for the Australian theme. There's another Ratcatcher in the works, and there's 2 other games, another solo design in the works as well.
Nice. Excellent.
That's right, because you spoke about that. There's like a Ratcatcher duo, right? Like a 2-player, isn't it?
Yeah, Ratcatcher 2 will be dual player.
Yeah.
Nice.
That'll be epic.
Nice.
Is that more rats? Like there's enough rats in that other game. Every time I play that game, I feel like I'm drowning in rats. They're coming from everywhere. I'm just, it's so much stress and pressure.
Well, you're playing it wrong. You're supposed to catch the rats. You're not supposed to drown.
Yeah, you are, but it's like a tsunami of rats.
Sometimes running is the best choice you have.
You have to run. Sometimes you're like, that was
one of my favorite things during the design, is that it just didn't feel like you just had to play whack-a-mole and just sit there and hunker down like you're the human, the rats can't threaten you. It's that idea that the number superiority made you make uncomfortable decisions. Where sometimes you have to move into a zone and go, I think the dice will favor me. I should have enough to clear this lot out, and it doesn't. And then you realize
I'm in trouble.
Yeah. Standing at the foot of the tsunami.
Yeah, there's cheese over there, but it's going to have to wait.
I need to change my pants first, and then I'm going
I must say, when you were talking about the cheese, and when I saw the cheese itself, I was like, that is one of the great game components. Like that sort of
love the magic cheese.
Oh, the magic cheese was just so good. I was like, oh, like sometimes I think we're all like a bit tactile, which is why we like having board games in front of us. And just a good component is just you just want to sort of play with them in your hand, and sort of you want to pick up more of them and sort of shake them around. I
totally agree. Board games, one of the beauties about them is that tangibility. It's that feel of good card stock. It's the dual layered board where the token just fits perfectly in there.
And tell me you didn't take some inspiration from Trivial Pursuit with the little cheese wheels when you're putting them all in the pieces.
Actually, no, one of the condition was that it just needed to form a proper cheese wheel. In shape, so it just had to go back to being a wheel.
It's so satisfying.
Ones I don't think they don't fit perfectly back into a wheel. Because the cheese, when it fills back into the wheel, has the rind on the outside as well. So it's actually a proper slice of cheese. You can even do the cover. I've had a few of the backers put up the photo of the cover, but done with the meeples and the actual magic cheese tokens and things like that, because they can repeat the same thing, which is kind of cool. I like when people figure that bit of it out.
Yeah. That's very cool.
Drop bears will have the same thing. I don't know if you guys have seen the tile stacker.
Yeah, I saw it.
The one's got hexagonal tiles.
Yep.
And one of the painful things, even just play testing, was stacking these tiles, because there's 60 tiles in the set. And they fall over and they slide off each other and things like that. So I made a gum tree that all the tiles stack into. But it's got branches off it as well, so the drop bear miniatures actually sit on the branches.
Epic.
Oh, cool.
And so they can sit in the tree overlooking everybody.
It's the Everdell of death.
Yeah. Everyone's like, I don't want to play that tree game. It's too scary. Like,
it's not one of those nice tactile things that you can sit there and just play drop bears sitting in the trees. And all the campers have really scared looks on their face. So even if you just stacked all the campers underneath the tree and have the miniatures in there, it looks kind of like the situation and the artwork that's going on.
Nice.
We actually have a couple of questions from the community, if that's okay to ask Matt. Yeah. Move on.
Moving on then. Okay.
I've spoken to them as well. They're not working.
It says, what Kenny here has asked, during your play testing, how many play testers have you been able to convince that drop bears are potentially real?
It's more fun with the Americans that we test with and things like that. The Australians aren't as fun. The Americans, especially if we've got a few Aussie testers is in the game as well. I find if you've got one Aussie telling the tale, it's a bit. As soon as you get two or more of us in the zone, suddenly they're all agreeing on this thing. It must be a little bit more real. I think that's the secret to it. You've got to have a sidekick or two to
strength in numbers.
Well, I thought they were real when I first got told about them, because I'm not from here. So I was like, when someone said, drop bears, they drop down from the trees and stuff and latch onto you. I was like, oh my God, I'm never going in the woods again. And they were like, it's not a koala. It's different. Then I'm looking for everything. Like, what the heck is that moving in the trees? I'm already looking at the ground. Like, where's that snake? Where's that spider? Now I've got to look at the trees.
The easiest way to convince people is to play them a sound clip of one of the male koalas. Doing their mating calls.
Oh, okay.
That is literally terrifying. If you're out in the middle of the bush and you hear that, and there is something in the bush wanting to eat you.
Dan, insert male koala noise here.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much. And also, Def has asked, do you know what a quokka is? Or do you need us to educate you? Because unfortunately, we had Ian O'Toole on once. And
they're delicious.
There you go. Exactly.
They run the simple rule I have on eating meat. The cuter it is, the better it tastes.
That's a fair point. That's why lamb is awesome.
Quokkas are adorable. We actually wanted to include one as a little item or something that you'd carry around.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Everyone was really sad at the idea that it could get eaten.
Yeah. A quokka bat.
Yeah.
Well, we just wanted him as a sidekick where he was like a mental health companion.
Yeah,
He's always so
Boosts
happy.
the morale,
stroke
yeah.
that quokka. Then
Hey,
it's
But then there's
okay.
that really weird circumstance of the mole dead hiking with smiling quokka next to it. And he's like, "What did you do,
Yeah.
quokka?"
It's like no one will know. No one will believe it was the butterfly. It's like no one will believe it's the quokka. Like,
I just
Yeah.
imagine it with this like Joker smile.
yeah.
That'd be hilarious.
They're way too trusting. Like as an animal, like they will literally, Adrian, they will literally come up to you. Like if you went to Rottnest Island, they would come up to you and think that like you're their provider of food.
Yeah,
But that's what we are, right? We go there and don't we feed
they're
them?
just lucky there's no predators on their island. Like,
Yeah.
that's all it is.
No,
Yeah.
all the predators live in the water around Rottnest Island.
So they don't go in the water.
No,
But like
they
how?
don't.
I mean, we probably don't know off the top of our heads, but how long have quokkas been on that island, just living life, like, and evolved into what they are?
Well, I'd assume longer than people, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they arrived on a boat.
No.
Let's put it that way.
I don't know. Might have been a submarine. Black Op invasion.
there you go. That's the next game for you then, Matt, is like the quokka invasion of Rottnest Island. It could be like a tower defense game, and you're trying
Oh, have you ever read Sean Tan's Rabbits?
No.
No.
Oh, if you haven't seen Sean Tan's artwork, full stop, he's amazing. He's based in Sydney, but he does this book called Rabbits, which is the colonialization of Australia for kids. I read it to my kids all the time.
I think
Amazing.
yeah,
But yeah, you can do it like that.
fighting off the rabbits. True.
Oh, quokkas, go! I just want to see them with little digger hats on. That'd be awesome.
Kind of like Worms video
little
game.
muskets or something.
Them adorable.
Yeah, that's what it is. So, yeah, it sounds like Plants vs Zombies. Actually, that's kind of what it sounds like to me.
Little
So
quokka
quokkas
sticking
are
at the top of a
fun.
tank.
Hanging out at the top of a Matilda. Hell yeah.
Very good. Well, Matt, you are no stranger to the show, and you know that we love to talk about board games. And normally, we do have a bit of a chat about games. So, how do you feel about hanging around and chatting about some of the games we've been playing lately?
Hell yeah.
Sounds good then. All right. So, I actually might have a bit of a layup here for Adrian. That's a basketball term, by the way, Adrian. Where
you were
you
about
wanted
to
to talk
propose
to
to me or
Matt about a
something,
particular
so-
game. Which would be a layup because I know how much you love me
Yes.
and would do
I thought we were going to have to tell Adrian what basketball was, as well as you.
I feel like I have to explain everything
I
to him.
actually have to
Where
tell you
is it?
today. I went to an axe throwing place for my birthday,
Oh,
and,
my God.
and the lady was like, she's like, you know, like when you throw something like in cricket, and I looked at her like with the face of like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, she's like, you know, don't flick your wrist. You've got to throw it like a smooth motion. And I was all in my head. I was like, I'm not flicking my wrist. What are you talking about? I blatantly was because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But man, it was so funny. That thing just like bounced off the wall like 50 times. I got it eventually, but you could definitely tell she was like, this guy has no clue how to throw a ball at all, of any form, throw anything. She's like, have you ever thrown anything? I was like, no.
A tantrum.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a can in a bin, but that's about it. Man, it was funny. I could tell that she was like, well, he's the weak link in the group. But it was still good.
Did you notice that you were the only one that got the rubber mallet to throw?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't give him a pointed object. Give him
Yeah, no pointy objects for this one.
But I have to say, by the way, just before we start talking about games and that, Matt axe throwing was really fun. I had a really good time doing that. Was awesome. Dave came, Def came, G Money came, a couple other friends, and it was just great. And when you start to get in the zone, it was really good. And there's a thing in axe throwing that they call the clutch, which is like a tiny little dot on the screen. And we were just going for the clutch all the time for fun because it was like, I don't want 3 points. I want to hit the clutch because that's the fun bit. And Dave like threw that axe straight into the clutch at one point, and he was the only guy that did it, and it was awesome. There was a massive old cheer and stuff. So yeah, well done, Dave.
Dave's a Tasmanian, so it makes sense that he'd probably like know his way around the woods.
Dude, he was so good. He was scarily good. He was like, his first throw was like 5 points straight on the bullseye. He was hammering those. He kicked ass. It was amazing, but it was great. Loved it.
Scandinavian heritage somewhere.
Yeah. So So sorry
Do
to
you remember
interrupt
what?
there, Connor.
Well, I was waiting for you to talk about
Layup. Yeah, here we go. Sorry, we'll get back to layup. I've been playing Kingdom Death Monster and been loving it. I was really disappointed in myself, to be honest, because I just want to buy all of it. And I've only started. And it's a scary expense, as I know Matt knows. And I tell you, man, I have never... I really, like, when I first started this podcast, I really loved, Arkham Horror, a lot more sort of thematic games. And then I just sort of went way off of those and started playing Euros, then really like heavier Euros and really loving that. But this one has definitely got legs on it to crack a top 10 game for me, without a doubt. Like, and I've only started to play the first like 3 games we've played. Just the way it works is mind blowing. Like, there's no game that I've ever played where I felt that like it's that thematically tied to us building a settlement and developing our different improvements and stuff to that settlement, to build armor, to upgrade, to fight different things, to then be able to use them abilities and knowledge and skills to hunt different monsters and stuff. And yeah, it's really good. Admittedly, it is just a lot of pen and paper. Like, it's just pen and paper, but wow, it works really well. Like a little sheet of black and white paper, and I'm like, yeah, just tick that and cross this little box off, and woohoo, we've developed this new language, and we can talk to each other now, and we can do this other stuff, and then you can develop like music and drums, and without too many kind of spoilers and stuff. Like, it's hard to sort of talk about it, but it's not a game that everybody would rush out and buy. So I feel like by talking about it a little bit in a sort of semi-spoiler zone might inspire some people to potentially get it. But like, one of the first things that we kind of came across that we were able to do was we could either decide as a tribe, would we become cannibals, or would we become people who would develop graves and bury our dead and gain knowledge and different things through that. I got outvoted and we decided to cannibalize each other. So when someone dies in the game, you can cannibalize that body for resources immediately, as opposed to like burying them and gaining like culture, if you will, like in the game. So like that, when that happened, I was like, this is the start, and it's already this kind of clever and cool. I love it. Like, I was already in. As soon as stuff like that started happening, I was like, this is amazing. I can't wait to keep playing this.
But with mechanics on that, like that in there, theme wise, it's probably not going to be for everyone, right?
100%. It's definitely not. It's incredibly graphic. It's incredibly can be quite intense. I mean, like, the first item that we could craft was fecal salve, and that basically you rub that on yourself and the monsters can't detect you because you don't
You
smell.
stink like monsters.
You don't stink like monster. You stink like monster fecal salve. But yeah, it's kind of clever. You blend it in, and until you attack the monster, you're not a threat to it. So that, you know what that reminds me of?
Imagine being the monster. Like, you're like, oh my god, my poo's attacking me.
Yeah, why is my poo walking around? But like, do you know what it really, really reminded me of that scene at the end of Predator with Arnie, and he rubs himself in all the mud and he hides in the trees, and the Predator's looking and scanning, but he can't see Arnie because he's covered in all the mud. And that's what it
was. That mud? I always thought that was fecal salve.
Schwarzenegger's fecal salve. But, yeah, that was all the rage of the 80s. Arnie's fecal salve. You could buy that anywhere. That's what they sold at Planet Hollywood in the behind the counter. But like,
yeah, you can just get the candle that smells like it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not the same. It's not the same. The candle's not the same. But no, it's like, that's just the start of it. And also the mechanics behind when you fight the monster. We fought the antelope and the white lion. And just the mechanics behind that are so clever. Like, he has like a triangular triangular vision in front of him of, I think, 6 spaces to the left, 6 spaces to the right, and then 6 spaces straight ahead, which form like a triangle, like in front of him, like an arrowhead. And if he has no threats in front of him, he he can either move to the threat or if there's someone closer to him, he can move to that. But if he can't see anybody because he's facing the wrong way, he sniffs the air. And when he sniffs the air, he immediately can start tracking somebody who's not in his range. And like, even just that is so cool. Like, just, it's so simple and so kind of obvious, really, when you think about it. Like, he can't see anyone in front of him, so he's going to sniff and try and track someone. That's kind of obvious, but it just works, and yeah, that's the start of it. And I'm absolutely blown away with it. I love it already. And I will definitely give a few more updates as we play it. But like, even just, we used resources to build our first buildings in our settlement. And though it kind of reminds me of Tristram in Diablo, like, you have these buildings and they have some basic items that you can do, but the loot that you get further along in the quests and the other things are far superior to what you can probably make in town. But I'm guessing that town almost upgrades itself as well. From what I can see, you could upgrade the shop and upgrade the skinnery to being a better version of something that can build better armor types and better weapons and other things. But yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed from the experience I've had so far. I've absolutely enjoyed it. My group's really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm really grateful that I actually got it and bought it when I did. Because it was one of those things where I just went on. I loved how dark it was and how disturbing some of the art was, and some of the lore behind it was. I got it with no clue on how it played at all.
That's a big investment on that idea.
We sold a house to get it, so that will give you a clue. That's what happened. And then I was like, we're building a house at the moment, so maybe I have to sell that house to get all the expansions. Like, that might have to happen. But like, yeah.
But it is a bit of a challenge to get. It's not it's not a game you can just walk into and your local game shop and pick up a copy, right?
No.
I know they've had a couple of Kickstarters, and they were pretty massive. I think it held the record.
You can get it direct from the website, but shipping it's quite hefty.
Right, okay.
If I remember right, just the core set's about 6-7 kilos.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
It's pretty big. It's a big box. And another thing as well that kind of comes along with this whole Kingdom Death sort of monster fiction fandom type thing is that none of the minis are built. You have to build all of the minis. It's on sprues. And I have to be honest, when I first got it, I was like, oh God, what have I done? I've never built these things. I have no experience in it. Apart from when I was a kid, I did some Warhammer stuff and some Airfix models. But massive, like, thanks to G Money, he came round, he went through it, he showed me how to like clip them like off the sprues, but not like hard up against the minis, so that they were kind of, the sprues, well, they were, the pieces were there, but the sprues were kind of still coming off it, so you could clip them while they weren't tight in the frames. So I clipped them all off and just gave them a little sand and then glue them together. And I found like a massive love for painting and stuff through it.
Yeah,
it's
good.
So good. And like,
I think finding the right minis for painting really helps.
Yeah, okay.
If you find something you really love, it's a little bit.
Well, I kind of always, like, I don't get serious with my that sort of stuff at all. I always look for inspiration from other things. So there's a guy in it called The Hand, and he looks like he's just a dude with a big, huge cape, a massive, like, katana sword, but like all this cool chest mail and bones kind of sticking out of it. And he's also got like this brain for a head inside like a pot on his head. And man, he looks like Mysterio from the Spider-Man universe. So I painted him completely Mysterio colors from Spider-Man. So he's like gold and brown with green cloth and then a big purple cape and then a blue brain head. And looks great. Like, I think it looks great. But
it
you're
does.
not going to be the biggest fan of him when you have to meet him.
Yeah, true. But yeah, sorry, go on. Sorry, Connor.
I was going to say, Matt's had a big old smile on his face the whole time, so you're clearly familiar with Kingdom Death Monster?
Yeah, I've been a fan of Kingdom Death since the first minis were sculpted from Adam before I even had Monster out. I love the game. It's so thematic, and for me, each of the monsters has its own personality. They have their own deck of reactions and attacks, and it really individualizes each monster that you come up against. So you can't use the same tactics, you can't use the same gear every time you're learning to take on a new nemesis. And some of them are absolutely brutal. If you do not learn and adapt on your feet, you will lose your whole party. Like, the game does not show you mercy.
Yeah.
So it's really fun in that regard, because sometimes you will come up against a brick wall and absolutely be wiped out, but you should learn from that experience and adapt, which should make you more adaptable long term, because the game is quite a long campaign style game. You need to be more adaptive as you go across through the game, because you are going to keep facing creatures that you don't quite know what they're going to throw at you until it's there. So you need to be precautious in how you approach things.
I also didn't really talk about this either, but the way some of the combat works is that you roll to sort of hit something, right? And you get a hit on the thing, and then you roll some of the cards that you pull out of the deck. When you hit something, you pull out a card to see like a reaction type thing to it. And some of them have like a crit on them. And when you roll, if you hit that crit for that animal or for that creature or boss of any type, it can critically wound the animal. So it goes into graphic detail about some of these wounds.
I know what you're talking
about. Very graphic detail on some of these wounds.
That poor lion.
Yeah, that poor lion. But
are we talking about Mortal Kombat 10 fatalities?
Some of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That, but in more sensitive areas.
Yeah. And is that like flavor text that's added to the card? Read that out.
You even get to collect trophies.
He definitely isn't going to have any offspring, let's put it that way. But it's really interesting in the fact that when you do that affects the monster for the rest of the fight. So if you deafen the monster, it will affect him. If you you cut his Achilles tendon, that will affect how he moves and how he reacts to different things. Even like the antelope, he can stumble constantly, and that's when you pile onto him. If you can critically wound him on the right place, if he falls over, you just dive on him because you have better success rate with your rolls and things like that. It's really clever. I've only played it, like I said, 3 times. And I'm absolutely blown away with it so far. So for me, so far it feels like the best thematic game I've ever played because I just couldn't think of anything else that was better. And when I think about that, I think about other things as well, like even video games. I think for me, World of Warcraft is the best multiplayer online experience I've ever done. I played it for years, and I play other ones, big hype about this new game. I play it and go, yeah, it's good, but it's not as good as when World of Warcraft came out at the start. And I feel like Kingdom Death's doing that. I feel like it's just it's so good that I don't see anything better out on the market for me personally, because I love all that dark, weird, crazy, disgusting, disturbing stuff. Luckily for us, so does my entire group, as it would seem. It's just, the first thing, making fecal salve in the first round, I was like, this is brilliant. You stink and no one wants to go near you. We gave it to Haig. We're like, you can use it, Haig, because he got wrecked by
there's
the lion,
worse things that you'll collect.
I can imagine. Yeah, exactly. But
it's good to know that nothing gets you excited quite like fecal salve.
There you go. Hey, if there's any fecal salve production companies out there that want some sponsorship or some advertising done, hit me up. I'm your man.
I'm going to veto that at the next team meeting. We are not being sponsored by poo juice. That's not happening.
You'll just start wearing the shirt and the cap.
Or like a Daytona driver. But
you'll turn up to events in a loincloth of fecal cells.
What do you think then, Matt? Do you think it's like that for you? Is the most thematical
it's
the game that you play?
It's the immersion.
Yeah.
You really, when you play with your group, you really are committed, not just to an individual character. And I think that's the big difference. There's a lot of dungeon crawlers and things like that. This is my single individual character. And within that, there's limitations of what that one character can do within that world, within that game. When you play as an entire settlement, you feel differently about losses and helping each other and things like that because you work as a community.
Yeah.
You're working even with outside the four of, few survivors that you have go out on the endeavors. There's more of them at home who inherit abilities and things through the culture that you develop as an entire settlement. I know with the new updates with the new expansions and things like that, there's going to be a new focus on generational learning.
Yeah. Oh, I've been
Because at the
reading
moment,
about that.
There's a bit of a gap in that
Yeah.
at the moment, but Adam's promised us that new generational gain will be much more. So you'll be able to pass on weapon proficiencies, for example, will be much more prevalent to go back.
Yeah. So if you become an elder and you retire, if you're a master in, say, swords or katanas or sickles, or whatever, you can hand that. You can teach that knowledge to your next generation of fighters that are going out to do stuff, so that they don't start at level 1 sword. Potentially, they start at level 5 sword because you've already taught them from a child up to when they're going to do their first hunt.
And also children will inherit physical attributes, so particularly strong or smart or...
All right. No. You guys need to stop talking about this game.
I love it.
I cannot afford a game like this with all the other games I have.
Oh my God, I think I have like 11 expansions. It's just... I have the entire miniature cupboard that is just KD
I'm
miniatures.
already looking at all the expansions and trying to figure out which ones I can get away with buying without getting noticed.
Can I proxy my Warhammers to be the miniatures?
Just let me know. I'll mail them up to you.
There you go.
Not like I can use all of them at once.
This
and the miniatures are all assembled and everything.
It really does sound like an incredible experience. I think that's
it's
more
a unique experience, definitely. Like I couldn't compare it to any other game. I think the biggest thing is scale. Like, it is just such a massive campaign. You play year by year, and even then, there's so much going on between the years in which you're doing all your society stuff and trying to manage resources and all that sort of stuff. And then when you're in the combat, it's almost like you're playing a different game.
Yeah, and each character learns different fighting traits and fighting styles.
They should be very unique.
Yeah.
They really do develop a personality because there isn't enough of everything. It's not like you can go, okay, this is the best weapon at this time, everyone gets one. You don't have the resources to do that. So some will have to do with less proficient weapons or other options that you had the resources for at that time.
Yeah. And if you built up a character and, we're working along the way, making it, having that personality and, getting attached to it. And then you just go into a battle and forget your fecal self. Will you, can you be killed?
You can be killed outside of boss confrontations. There's events and things that happen during the settlement phase where it will challenge you. There's certain waypoints in your timeline that will trigger new monsters coming. So some of them actually come and visit your settlement. They're not all like beasts and feral things. Some of them are more intelligent than humans. Yeah. Because humans are at the bottom of the food chain. We're a resource for the monsters and creatures of this world. And some of them come to us and check in on us and see what's going on and are interested to play games with your settlement. And some will reward you with one hand and take with the other. So it's rather interesting how you deal with some of these because you can react to them differently and see what comes of it as well.
I love at the start as well. At the start of the game, you just wake up in the dark and you manage to get a torch and that's it. And away you go. There's a lion.
And you get your rock. Don't forget your rock.
Yeah, you've got a rock and a torch and there's a lion that's looking at you with his mouth full of blood.
And my loincloth.
Yeah, that's it.
Sounds like my Monday morning before work.
Yeah, right.
Don't forget the fecal self for the Monday meeting.
But yeah, it's really
you don't
good.
come to the Monday meeting. It's fine. You can stay away from the Monday meeting. So,
well, is that all I've got to do to get out of it?
Just smear it on before Monday.
I'm smearing it on right now.
But yeah, it's incredible, honestly. And I would have to say that I believe both of you guys would love it as well. Like I think you'd enjoy it. But the only thing is you can't play one-handed. You can't play one hero. You have to play the 4. You play as a 4.
Yeah, even single, you've got to. Yeah, and it becomes quite a. I've played it a few. Played about 2 or 3 campaigns solo. I find it quite book heavy. It's quite hard to remember to do everything. Because each character is so unique. And has to do their things to really achieve what they're doing. But it is fun because you get to make the settlement decisions you want to in a group. Sometimes the group will go, we'll take path A. And you're like, I really really wanted to go down path.
Yeah, I was like, let's build graves and bury our dead and get some culture. And they're like, no, let's just eat each other. When you die, we're going to eat you. And that's what happened. Haig died and we
There's some
ate him.
really dark decisions you can make because
Yeah.
there's sort of these waypoints in your culture when they hit certain milestones. Then you have to choose about where they're going to keep progressing from there.
Yeah.
And some of them, can be rather unusual.
Yeah. But yeah, very, very interesting game. Love the thing.
We had cannibalistic poets at one stage. It was quite beautiful.
There you go. But yeah, it's very unique. It's very different. I absolutely love it. I'm really happy that I got it. It's really good as well because for me and MJ, we don't do a regular game group. We just never done it. But this is a Wednesday night, once a fortnight. We will meet and we play this game, and it's good because it's a nice thing to do together with the same group. So that's a really good plus about it as well.
Yeah, it's a really good game for that sort of setup, and because it's quite good with its timeline.
It's not even that long to play it. Like,
we're going to go Wednesday night. We're going to play one settlement phase and one hunt.
Yeah,
that's it. That'll be enough for tonight.
Yeah,
and you don't feel like you're overloaded, and it doesn't feel like a lot of the other campaigns where it's really unpredictable.
Yeah,
about how long it's going to take to do this or that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely right in that because that's one of the beauties is that you have these phases, and these phases can be quite long if you wish to be. If you want to discuss it and debate and go, look, we've got these resources, so what do we think that we should do to build? And that's half the fun. Is like discussing it and going, well, I think we should make another fecal salve for whatever reason, or let's make the sword, or let's make the armor,
or let's save these resources for later.
Yeah, it's really
when we don't have enough to do, this chest plate that we really need to finish an armor set off or something.
Yeah,
but there's always risk. There's always these unpredictable parts to the game. Even storing stuff can be unpredictable. If a certain monster comes in and thieves things, or some of the monsters abduct particular members of the party.
Yeah.
There's no safe.
No, it's really good. So yeah, Conor, I love it. I can't wait to keep playing it. It's definitely got potential to be a top game without a doubt. That's the thing. And I've only just started, so. Hey, little man.
Got my co-designer.
And he's on.
Very good. Oh, there we go. Right. Well, Adrian, geez, I hate you sometimes because that has fully annoyed me.
I think you would. I think you especially because you like painting minis, you like building them. I think you would really enjoy it. So yeah.
Oh, the minis are absolutely gorgeous. Hands down, some of the best plastic miniatures on the market.
Yeah.
Like detail-wise, even how they go together, they're very well engineered.
Yeah.
They're definitely a standard if you're anyone in the design community. If you're looking for miniatures that should set your goals for where you want to be at, they're pretty close up there.
Yeah, for sure.
No,
the actual Conor, just before we move on, I'm going to keep going. Just let me have my thing. This is the Kingdom Death podcast now. Anyway, one other thing as well is your characters, Conor. You upgrade your characters as well. So you get new minis each time you play. You upgrade armor, then you get that armor and you put it on that mini, and you upgrade that mini. So currently, I've got a little bit better of a loincloth on one of our heroes, and I've kind of gone and tried to make him look a little bit Vegeta looking. That's what I've gone for. Like he's Vegeta. I've done that paint scheme, but yeah, it's such a great game.
The listeners will be loving that.
Yeah. Sorry, I will post the pictures on Discord when I finish because it's not quite finished yet. But yeah, absolutely love the game. I think if anyone is interested or semi on the fence about it and been like, oh man, I've always really wanted to just go stuff it. I'm getting it and going to give it a try. I couldn't agree more. Just do it because you will love it.
We'll see if we can get someone to organise bringing it down to the Melbourne Day.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. There you go.
That would be good. Very good. All right, so that is none other than Kingdom Death Monster. Mitch, there's a bit of a change of tact. What's been hitting your table recently?
Well, I board game wise, nothing. I don't play board games anymore. I play game books.
Yeah. I'm excited about this.
What's that?
It's a game book. So for those of you who've listened to some of the early episodes, I actually bought one a little while ago and tried it out. It was called Bismarck Solitaire. And it was all regarding. It was basically a roll and write war game where you played the Bismarck destroyer with some of the German subs and another assist boat. I can't remember the name of, but it was all from World War II and the battle in I can't remember which ocean it was, but essentially off Britain. Where the Germans sent the Bismarck over to the British, and it was giving them all sorts of trouble. And then the British end up sinking it. But you play the game, you roll the dice, and you're trying to sail around and take out the British ships that are trying to get you. Well, that got me looking at some more war games. And as you know, I've been playing a lot of Undaunted with Def. We've been punching our way through that. We finished the Normandy campaign. We've been working through the North Africa campaign. So I'm really enjoying these sort of tactical war games, if you would. That said, the higher end ones are way above my intelligence level. There's a lot going on in some of those games. The rulebooks, are longer than any novel I've ever read.
Is it is it that novel that you read, like that one where it's like Ben has a ball, a big red ball? That one, like that novel?
I didn't get through that one. I only got halfway through. So
I won't spoil the ending then.
But it led me to just looking into some other solitaire options. And there's a really good Facebook group as well, which is specifically for solitaire war games. Because the other thing with a lot of these war games is they require at least two people playing them. Obviously, you'll usually have one person playing one army or country and another playing the other. And this solitaire group is a really good resource for finding out about solitaire games. And I saw these game books popping up on there quite often, commented about. This one that I've been playing recently is called Fields of Normandy, a solitaire war game by a gentleman by the name of Mike Lambo. Now, from what I understand of Mike Lambo, this is the first thing he's done. They're self-published. He doesn't even print them or anything. It's some sort of arrangement that I'm not completely across with Amazon. You can only get them on Amazon. I know some people don't like to buy through Amazon, but it seems you place the order through Amazon and they actually print the books up through like some sort of Amazon publishing arrangement.
Like they've got their own publishing part of Amazon that you can send files to. Yeah, right.
My book's arrived, and in the back it says manufactured by Amazon.com.au in Sydney, New South Wales. So I'm not sure if they have like a branch of, a printing press or something within Amazon in all the cities. Who knows? I don't know. But it was super, super easy to order. It came like in a day and a half. They're like $20 each. They're super cheap. Mike Lambo has done 4 of them. Of those 4, I bought the 3 because they're slightly different. And so far I've had a crack at the Fields of Normandy, which is the one that I have here. Now, ultimately, you provide your own dice, your own pencils, and your own eraser, and it's a war game in a book. It's not as heavy as some of the others, but for those that can see here on the podcast, and I'll explain it as we go, there's like a page detailing all of your units, what your units do in terms of the damages and so forth, the actions that your units can take on each turn, and you roll the dice, and then you have a choice. It'll tell you which actions you can choose from that turn. And then you have objectives for each of the missions, and each page is a new mission that you've got to achieve. And you go about your business as you would, say, a war game. So you might start the game with a number of different types of units. Your objective might be, for example, this one here, is to advance any British units onto the church hex. So that's what you're trying to get to. And there's different hexes, as you can see the map here. There's different hexes where the Germans will hang out.
Was the Lion book?
Not dissimilar, but this is the whole game.
Yeah.
So you take a pencil and you draw in where your units are. You then roll the dice, and everything from there is essentially your decision. Yes, you roll your dice for attacks and that sort of stuff, but it's very tactical in the sense that you've got options in terms of where you go, and then that will determine how you can attack. When you get within a certain distance of where an enemy is, that enemy will spawn. and each enemy has a different field of fire. If you're within that field of fire, then you're susceptible to being attacked every turn on the enemy's turn. But you can mitigate that by flanking, so you can position your units in certain places either side of the enemy, or in a position for those enemies where you're not within the field of fire. So you get bonuses if, for example, you're attacking an enemy unit from behind because they're not necessarily seeing you coming. So it's a very sort of strategic puzzle where you're moving your troops around and moving your units around in certain places, and the different units do different things. You have mortar units that can attack from different distances and give your other riflemen bonuses and stuff like that. It's really takes the war game feeling, boils it down a little bit into a really digestible package where you can take this with you anywhere. I literally took it to work on this weekend. I was working over the weekend and taught myself the rules on my first lunch break, and then the next day I played it. While I was sitting at the desk eating my lunch. So yeah, it makes that whole sprawling, insane, massive rule book, totally overbearing war game into something you can do whenever you want. And this one that I have here that I've been playing, The Fields of Normandy, I've actually gone and I made myself a little a laminate page so that I can put that over the top of the maps and use the dry erase markers and things.
Clever.
So that I'm not actually destroying the book. But that Fields of Normandy one is essentially the entry level. So this is where you start at. And as I said, $20 delivered for free if you have Prime. And I'll just check for you in this one. There's 15 missions in this. Then it goes up. So the next one up that I intend to play is Ghosts of the Jungle, and this is actually based around the Australian Special Forces in Vietnam.
Nice.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more complex. It ramps up the complexity a little bit. So I can, for those that can't see, there's a lot more units to be dealing with. There's a lot more enemies, and the maps are quite a lot more detailed and complex in terms of moving around, more buildings, more obstacles, and things like that. So that ramps that up. And then the next one I have is actually set in medieval times.
Whoa, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so this one is all the wars around Britain. So you have, myself being a bit of Scottish heritage, I looked into see if it had it, and it does indeed. Has the Battle of Falkirk with William Wallace, the Battle of Stirling Bridge, and the Battle of Bannockburn. So and that then takes it up again in terms of complexity as well. So look, if you're into war games, if you've ever thought, hey, that intrigues me. I like that sort of theme. I like the historical aspect. I like that strategic kind of combat on a map type thing. I don't think there's a better place to start. I really don't. I mean, yes, they're solitaire. So if you're looking for a multiplayer experience, these aren't going to deliver that. But if you like that, if you like, how that sounds, and you want something that's really portable, you can take it around. As I said, one laminated sheet to stick in there so that you can replay them over and over and over again.
Yeah.
For $20, that's a fantastic. Yeah, it's just can't be beaten.
So
from where I am.
I remember you saying with the game at the Bismarck, you were maybe a little bit disappointed with the complexity, like it didn't quite feel like a war game. So do these ones feel more war game-ish than the Bismarck game?
Yeah, the Bismarck game, I found that you were like your choices of what you could do was kind of very dependent on what the dice delivered you each round, and I guess as is the nature of like a naval kind of game where you're sailing around this wide open expanse of water looking for an enemy. That kind of was a lot of the game. It was just sort of moving around until you hit the right position where these ships were going to be, and you could sail into areas where the probability was higher that you would run into an enemy if you went there, but you still had that sort of dice % chance that you either would or would not bump into an enemy. So there were sort of times if you got a few bad rolls, you could spend a lot of turns just randomly sailing around the ocean looking for something to happen. No, these I think are a bit sort of a one step up. And I don't mean to say that to put Bismarck down. Bismarck was good for what it is, but it is that kind of you're on the ocean in a boat. There's not a lot of terrain.
Yeah.
to navigate. There's not a lot of strategic sort of battle tactics, battlefield tactics, because there is no battlefield. It's just ocean. You're in, you're on a bathwater. Whereas these have that whole, there's buildings. You can get into the buildings. Then there's more cover, so it's harder to hit targets in the buildings. There's, trees will give you additional cover. As I said before, there's bonuses and things to your die rolls and to the attacks when you position your troops in certain places in order to gain advantage from that. There's certain cells that are considered hills. So if you can take the high ground, you get an advantage. So there's a lot sort of more to it than just sail around and find the gunships and take them out, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In terms of
it's more like it's a war game, right? So as opposed to just being one sole mechanic, it's different units have different strengths and different ability, not so much abilities, but a greater chance to hit or whatever, and they've got different outfits. So I mean, it sounds like what miniatures games are based off of, which really that's what they were. War games came first, and then it came into miniatures games, which were just a bit more of a table presence.
Did you ever do any miniatures gaming, Matt?
Me? Yeah, tons.
Yeah, I never did any. Everyone else seems to have done loads.
I'm from a wargaming background, so yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Way too many hours at a tabletop.
Yeah, man, that's how it's done.
Yeah, so if you're into tabletop wargaming and that sort of stuff, like I think these are absolutely fantastic for just something you can chuck in your bag. You chuck in your bag, chuck a couple of dice in and a pencil and a rubber, and you're off. Like it's that simple. Yeah.
I grew up with a World War II background with gaming, so as a young child, I was used to playing games very similar to that, but with scrolls and miniatures and like tokens everywhere to have it so easily. Yeah, as you said, just chuck it in your backpack and play a few rounds while you're on a lunch break or on a train trip or bus trip or something like that as well, or a long road trip or anything.
Yeah, well, I think I said even with
a great idea for something a little bit more crunchy and deep than
essentially
a lot of the roll and write.
Essentially, it's like a save page, right? Because of the sheet, like it's all the information's on the page, like you're saved. Like you just close the book and open it again. There's no setup, pat down, writing notes or nothing. It's like done.
Yeah, and if you want to be super portable, I mean, you can get dice apps on your phone.
Yeah.
So you don't even need die, really. You can just use.
Yeah, gotta have the.
That's not optional.
Rolling die on the train's a bit hard, though.
That's everyone else's problem, not mine.
Can you tell me down in the carriage? Can you tell me what it rolled?
Don't change the side. Tell me what result it is. Don't
touch it. That was a 6. Don't touch it.
Yeah, no rerolls.
But yeah, so one thing that I've sort of seen, and especially on this solitaire group that Def and I are on now, a lot of people sort of, I think, have that curiosity about war games. And there's a lot of times people will come into the group and they say, hey, need some advice. What's a good war game for someone who's never played a war game before and wants to get started and test it out and see how it is? This is the answer right here. I tell you, these war game books, that is 100% smack bang right in that alley.
Very
easy to get into. 20 minutes to learn the rules, read through the rules at the start, and bang, you're into it. It's not too complex. Each game is probably 20, 30 minutes. So it's not going to, kill you in terms of time frame. It's no campaign in North Africa. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone ask me that question, what should I get into to check out war games? This is the answer, and it's probably going to be for a while. I think this is going to be a bit of a trend. After the success of the Bismarck Solitaire, I know. I'm trying to think of the name of the company that actually makes that game. It's Wentworth, something like the Wentworth Games. They've done another one, which is Waterloo, Waterloo Solitaire, based on the Napoleonic Wars.
Not the Abba
I haven't got. Sorry, not the ABBA song. It's not the war game of ABBA music.
I'd play that.
That sounds like a great game. Like they do that Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. They should do, It's Creek and ABBA or whatever. I don't know. Like,
but I haven't actually got the Waterloo one, but it seems to be pretty popular out there as well. And I'll probably jump on that eventually when I've had a bit of better crack at these ones. But I think it's a bit of a niche that's gonna grow, because it's so handy and so convenient, and yet it provides a really good experience. So yeah, I would definitely recommend anyone who was into that or wanted to try it out to check them out.
Awesome. Well, with that, we might move on to our next couple of sections. One, just before we do, I just wanted to give a quick mention to the Sydney and Brisbane game days. So the Sydney game day is on April the 9th, and the next Brisbane game day is on May the 21st. So Adrian, do you want to give actually, we'll go to Mitch first because Sydney's before the Brisbane one. Quick update on the Sydney game day.
Yep, so the Sydney Game Day, as Conor said, April 9th. It'll be at the Castle RSL, which is a fantastic venue for anyone who's been at the other game days. We're running from
frozen daiquiris around for $10.
And chicken burgers.
Oh, they're so good.
and the chicken schnitzel burgers. I don't think I've ever had a better one.
Yeah, you can drink those daiquiris all day if you have one of those chicken burgers because that alcohol's not getting through because that chicken burger's like 20 kilos. That is so big.
So it's a great venue. It'll be 12 hours, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. So you can come and go through the day. You can come and have a feed at lunch. We'll also have a pop-up store there from Goat Wine Games will be our pop-up store this time. So really appreciate them coming along and helping us out. Get on to Eventbrite, grab your tickets. We're doing a family ticket now, so if you've got kids and you want to come along as a group, we've got given you a bit of a discount. So also check that out. Love to see you there. The teachers will be advertised soon. Jump in on a game with myself and or Sarah, and I don't know. There's a couple of the other podcast hosts who haven't quite decided whether they're going to be there or not. Maybe we won't tell you, and then we'll spring them out of a cake halfway through the day. But
like an Under Siege 1, just like that, like a striptease type thing.
Exactly. Erica Elniak. But yeah, Sydney Game Day, Autumn Edition. Come along. It'd be great to see you there. Always a good day.
Always a good day. And Adi, any update on the Brisbane game day on the 21st of May?
Yeah, the Brisbane game day is going from 10 a.m. till midnight. It is at the Gbung RSL again. We potentially might do one south side in the near future. But we had a great success at Gbung and they were really supportive of what we're trying to do. And yeah, that's really it. Like there's still some tickets left, but I've been surprised at how many have actually sold as we've only just started to advertise. So, don't hold off because we do have a limited space. We don't have the same 2 rooms as last time. We have a slightly smaller capacity. But yeah, the scheduled teachers will probably be added in approximately 2.5-3 weeks. So make sure you have your tickets before that so that then you get the updates for the scheduled games so you don't miss out on those. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I can say that I've been to both Sydney and Brisbane game days, and they are absolutely phenomenal. So, really looking forward to those couple of days.
You haven't been to a Melbourne one though.
I haven't been to a Melbourne one. Someone sent us a message about I've been booked into a baby shower. Who am I? And I was like, Conor. It's Conor because if you don't know, I've gone to weddings, 2 weddings on the 2 days at the Melbourne game days are on.
That's going to become a thing for people who pull out.
Yeah.
I've done a Conor.
Well, it already is.
Yeah,
that's what that person basically said.
It's like,
exactly.
It's like doing a Homer. But very good. Well, what we might move on to next is, as you might have heard previously, the Board Game BBQ Awards are back. Nominations are now open for you to nominate your favorite games from 2021 in 9 categories. Best solo, best family game, best party game, best light game, medium weight game, heavy game, best expansion, best artwork, and game of the year. You can find the link to our nomination form on all of our socials, including Discord, Twitter, Instagram, and on our Discord community. Nominations are open to anyone in the community for 3 weeks on Facebook, Discord, Instagram, Twitter. Nominate in all categories. Or once nominations close on Sunday the 27th, then we take the most nominated game in each category and they become the official nominees for the Board Game BBQ Awards. Then we hand it over to our esteemed panel of judges, our patrons, to vote, and this will culminate in the Board Game BBQ Awards night, which once again will be filmed for YouTube, and we hope to have some surprises to show on the show as well. And to round that out. We're going to discuss 3 topics tonight. Just quickly, not going to be a big in-depth Kingdom Death Monster discussion. It's going to be best artwork,
You're lucky
best
that's not on the list.
expansion, yeah, and of course the big dog, the game of the year. So,
Thanks for that rundown, Dan.
No,
Connor.
Can't tell us apart, can you? Now, so we'll lead it off with best artwork, and I reckon that. I mean, look, art's art, right? So it's a bit subjective at times, but I mean, for me, it's hard to go past a couple of these two in Botoku and Oath. I think Botoku and Oath have. I mean, Cole Farron with Oath, like that's sort of a no-brainer for me. And then Botoku, it's just crazy. It's just bonkers. I looked at it and was like, no, this isn't good art. And then you actually open the game up and play it, and you're like, this art is incredible. So, what do you guys think? What's been some art highlights for you guys?
The art highlight for me, that it was for a game that I actually backed on Kickstarter, which I wasn't actually like enamored with. I didn't think it was fine. It was a good game, but it wasn't a great game. And I've only played it twice, so maybe I need to give it a bit more playing and to see what I really think. A higher player count as well, other than 2. But was the Daimyo Rebirth of a Nation or Rebirth of the Empire? That art style is so cool, like a post-apocalyptic Japanese sort of esque world where they're kind of going back to their roots and dressing up as samurais and stuff, but using all kind of 80s tech and modern tech. So like there's a samurai guy who's got like a baseball hat, but he's, rather than the big flared up pieces of armor, he actually has like an old bicycle handlebars with like a bell on one side, and like just that kind of mix of the old and new, because it's obviously set in the distant future, but they hunt relics, and the relics are like old Pac-Man arcade games and stuff, rather than being like, proper, ancient jade statues and stuff. So I really liked that. I liked the world building that it did with its art style. I thought it was really clever and really well done. I really enjoyed it. So I think that looks great.
I'm going to throw in the ring, if I may.
You may.
A game whose art and illustration was done by a good friend of the show, Andrew Bosley. And that's Merchants of the Dark Road.
That's pretty
that's
sick.
pretty good. That looks cool.
Which he just seems to have... he's got that Midas touch. Everything he does is just pretty much off the hook. Going from something like Everdell, which is, all cutesy and fun and, bright and I guess almost sunny. And then you look at Merchants of the Dark Road and it's fantasy and it's dark and gloomy, and it really brings across that sort of feeling of that cold, dark gloom type, world that is built in. So I think he's done a phenomenal job with that game. And so much of that game is brought to life through his art. So I really thought that should be a candidate. That should be up there.
Maddie, anything? Well, aside from the obvious, the Ratcatcher, but
That's
Ratcatcher.
That's pretty cool on your own stuff. You can't do that one. I think I appreciate some of the more graphical styles as well. Like Wavelength was quite an interesting one. For me, that sort of stuff I think will catch on a shelf in that marketing side of things a little bit more effectively than quite complicated illustrations, as beautiful as they are. If you really want to catch eyes, it's a slightly more graphical approach as well. I'm trying to remember, there's another game by Bluebeard as well, A Time to Kill, I think it's called.
Yep.
And that's got a Sol Bass sort of 1940s handmade sort of feel to it, but with a really nice Quanche Moria sort of style, more splashes of color. I think it's a really good mix of an old style with a more contemporary touch of color and layout, and a really effective cover art that instantly makes you go, wow, this is intriguing. I want to know more.
Yeah.
I find that's really where you need to be at, and I would like to see a lot more than that. As much as I love the pretty illustrations, don't get me wrong, a lot of the styles are repeated.
I also have to say Unsettled is really nice, not just as the art style, but as a product of it and in its whole self. Like even the box and the shape of the box is cool because it's weird and it shouldn't work, but it does. Because it does. You look at that box and you go, God, that's going to be so annoying on the Kallax, and you get to fit this here and that there. But when you have the box and you put the little planets above it, it's the same size as a normal 2 games next to each other on their side, and it slides to the Kallax. But when you take that game out and you have those game trays and all that stuff that works, and then those giant like hockey puck, like see-through colored discs that represent events that are happening in these particular areas and stuff, and then it does come with, I think, like 8x10 art, like with it, like prints, and that is a really cool stylized game. And the actual graphic design in that does really work really well. So I think it does anyway.
I find it interesting that we all sit and talk about the art, and you listen to Matt, and he's got a really sort of deep insight into that and how we interact with it and the contrast. And we go, it was really cool looking.
It's very pretty.
It looks pretty. It looked sick. Like
Connor's quote on a box one day. It looks sick, man.
Yeah, it's sick.
This is why you should never become a publisher. It ruins all those sort of things.
When you were talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
I've never thought about it like that before. Yeah.
Meanwhile, me and you, Mitch, pretty colours, me like,
Ooh, shiny.
Funny component, very good. Well, our next one for your offerings is expansion, and this can be a bit tricky sometimes. We've had a few good ones that have come out. Cartographers has come out with its standalone. We've had.
I have to say, I played 2 fantastic expansions already.
Hit me with that.
Pipeline Emerging Markets is phenomenal. Such a great expansion, up there with the best expansions for me, 100%. Great, phenomenal, love it. And then also the Res Arcana. Perlae Imperii. Perlae Imperii. Yeah, it's really good. It adds a lot to the game. It takes a game that, because I think the people that play Res Arcana love Res Arcana, then they binge play it. Do you know what I mean? They play it, and it's like a midweek game. You can play it in 45 minutes, 2-player, job done. Like it's a really quick game. But adding that another expansion adds like new mechanics, a new scoring condition, and a whole bunch of other stuff that makes it enough for people who've played it a bunch to just find that like love for it again. And that's really important, because like those kind of card games like Race for the Galaxy, which is obviously his other design, people that play that tend to play that a lot. They just love playing it back to back, game after game, smashing it. So this expansion did really well for Res Arcana. I really enjoyed it. It's really good. I wouldn't even teach it without it, put it that way. So yeah.
I think that's one of the best signs of a good expansion.
Yeah.
Is that it feels like the core game has been so improved now.
Yeah.
that it now must be merged.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I guess for me, looking at there's 2 expansions on this list that I looked at before, and I can't, and you guys are going to laugh at me because I think Adrian knows what's coming, and Mitch definitely knows what's coming. So Arkham Horror Living Card Game, they changed the way that they release their expansions. So they used to do the ridiculous thing where they release a Mythos pack, and you have to collect all these Mythos packs and be able to print, and it was a big pain in the backside. Whereas now what they've done with the Edge of the Earth is they're releasing the campaign expansion, and they're releasing the investigator cards. So you can buy them. You can, if you just want a new campaign to play through, you can grab that. If you just want the investigator cards, you can grab that. And I think it's a really, really clever way for them to rejig the way that their product is being released, as opposed to the crazy way they were doing it before, which makes no sense because you pretty much lose people that way. And the other one I can't go on without mentioning, Paladins of the West Kingdoms, the City of Crowns. That is such a great expansion. Like what you were saying, Adrian, I wouldn't play that now without it, because I think it just adds, just enough. It's really great, and I'm having heaps of fun playing with that expansion, and especially playing it solo.
Yeah, nice. That's the only. I haven't played it enough to add that in or to warrant getting it yet. I've only played it probably 4 times, but I've really enjoyed the plays I've had of it. So it's one of those games though where I don't know what I'm doing. Still,
Well,
I'm
you
not
mean
gonna lie.
every game.
I don't know how to get points. I know how to do stuff. I just don't know how to do anything good, and I always get beaten. But it's just not a problem. But yeah, well, like talking about Hadrian's Wall oath. You know how like that was my old oath, and I kind of semi gave that up because I just couldn't figure it out. I got my best score ever the other day, and I was so stoked with it. I was like, "This is." I kind of clicked a little bit better for me for like trying, and it's funny because MJ loves it. She really loves playing it, so we've been playing it quite a lot. And then you know what it's like. It's not that I get demoralized or anything. I can't figure it out. I don't know what I'm doing. My score goes down and down and down, but then all of a sudden I was like, hang on, I just got 75. Like that's my best score ever by like 20 points. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And now I'm kind of getting it a bit more and giving it more of a go. I feel better about it. But yeah, I want to play Paladins more to get that same feeling. I think after a couple more plays, things might start to click a bit better and I might do a bit better out of it. But I would love to try the expansion for sure.
Yeah,
so.
it's good. Yeah, I think it just adds enough for you if you've played heaps of Paladins to get something out of it. But Mitch, any expansions hit your table the last 12 months? No. You're just
no. Look, to be honest, I looked at the list. The only one that sort of jumped out as a good expansion that I liked was Cartographer's Heroes.
Yep.
Which was cool. Adds some more maps. It adds some more dynamics with heroes that you can play and draw to get rid of some of your monsters and things. So a little bit of another dynamic. Is it enough? Do I think it's good enough to win the expansion of the year? Probably not. It's a good expansion, but it's not mind blowing. It adds some more content for you. If you're into cartographers, it's going to extend the longevity of that game for you by adding a few more bits and pieces. But it's not world changing.
I do feel like a lot of people will be shouting Dune Imperium expansion, whatever the name is, Rise of a Rix or whatever the hell. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
Rise of a something with an X in it. But like I haven't played Dune, so I wouldn't be able to talk much about it. But I know people love Dune, and I've only heard good things about the expansion, especially from Sarah. She played it and did some content about it, and she said it was good. So
yeah, cool. Maddie, any expansions you want to talk about from?
Mine was a really little one. It's a Grollops to the city Sprawlopolis.
Oh, yeah.
I love that game. That's one of those lovely little games that you can just always play, and reminds me of the original SimCity.
Yeah,
nice and colourful, playful. But it's also one of my games I usually teach people for solo gaming as well. So I loved that they did a little expansion for that. It was all very country based and added a few cool little changes to the game, which, considering it's only 16 cards or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Any additional content is quite clever to fit it back into that dynamic that exists already.
Yeah, Mitch and I played
adding cards, and it's so torturous, that game.
Mitch and I played the expansions.
Can't go wrong with simplicity.
Mitch and I played the expansions for Skulls of Sedlec.
With Skulls of Sedlec.
That was good, eh? I enjoyed that. It added enough to make it interesting again and more thinky, but it didn't break it. It kept it as still a small amount of cards. You use less cards, you use the same amount of cards, but you put cards in, take cards out. But yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed that. So
very good. And then to round it out, like I said, we've got the big dog. We've got the game of 2021 from the Board Game BBQ. We'll go around the horn, and I want you to give me one game that you think is the best game of the year, starting with Mitch.
Sleeping Gods.
Bang. Matt.
Or can I say Hero Quest because I'm
I
nostalgic?
think
it was a little bit before 2021 when it was
But
released.
it was a version of it came out last year.
Well, hey, do you know what, Mitch? sorry, no, Mitch. Matt, do you know one of our top 10s? I put Warhammer in my top 10, and I got absolutely rinsed. So you just need to be careful when you're nominating miniatures games for anything.
I don't get the hate for miniature games. As long as the miniatures are justified and not just,
that was
we
so
threw
funny.
miniatures in there because we thought that was good. But it's like Descent. Like Descent got a re-release as well, but I think that revamped it into a whole new category that caught new players, and that's what we want, isn't it? We want more players to join us in the table, and if that means a new box cover and some shiny new miniatures, I'll take that.
I jumped on the new second edition Great Western Trail, which is actually listed as a potential nominee for Game of the Year. But and yeah, I don't really think it counts because it kind of not new, but what they've done with it has been amazing.
It's hard to draw the line without knowing the game so in-depthly about how many changes were made between A to B. Sometimes, it isn't that much of a change. It was a bit of a tidy up. Other times it's a huge rework.
Especially if you've been playing it like for a long time and you've got one of the rules wrong for a long time and you never realized, and then someone told you about it and you're like, oh, I'd playing that wrong the whole time. Like you could,
okay, moving on, Connor. Let's keep going. Keep pushing
80, I'm not allowed to play Jamaica anymore thanks to that rules thing.
80, your game of the year.
Man, it's not going to be simple because I'm not going to do that. But I think Ark Nova will.
He said one game.
Yeah, I know he said that. But...
He said one game. Just give one into one game.
He said Ark Nova. Done. No, go.
No. I think Ark Nova will win it, but I don't necessarily think it would be mine. I think maybe Bitoku might have been one of the best ones. It was so good, and I really enjoyed the mechanics. I like the cards and the art, but the theme doesn't come through as much. But I think as an entire package and as an entire game, even though I've only played it once and it was on TTS, it really stuck with me as something that I want to play and keep playing and trying, is Merchant's Cove. I thought that was a great game. I thought it was really clever. I thought it was complete asymmetrical games that all work together. Plus it has homages to Doc and Marty from Back to the Future, one of the best franchises of all time. So that had me sold. Yeah, I liked that the game from start to finish. I liked the art, I liked the production, I liked the mechanics, I liked what we were all doing, that was all different. I feel that, you could play each one of those multiple times and not really find a formula to winning. Whereas I find that in Ark Nova and Bitoku, I feel that that's easier to find a formula to getting good points.
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to mention Merchant's Cove as my game of the year. So we'll just put a little asterisk next to it, but I will mention a game that has been mentioned before on this podcast, and that is Hadrian's Wall. I think that is a dead set smoky to win this year. But geez, I'll just quickly run through a list that we've got here. I'll just bear with quickly. So we had Ark Nova, we had Cascadia. Mitch, I know that was a favourite of yours. Sleeping God, you mentioned. Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, that came out this year. Unk, Destiny's, Meadow, Oath came out. Cubitos, Canvas. There's just been so many good games over the last year. Which is totally mad because of what's been going on in the world. So if we didn't mention your favorite game, please make sure that you vote on our socials, getting the forms of our socials, and then we can make sure that you get your vote in. But with that, we'll move on to the bracket. And just in case you're a bit worried about the absence of Matt in the next session, he did have to leave. He had some family things to attend to. So we do thank Matt for joining us, but we'll just move on to the next part of the show.
Buying games is a serious thing. And if you're serious about games, then you'll check out 2D6 Games. Dan, Dave and Joe will go above and beyond to make sure your gaming needs are all sorted. They have a great range and they also provide free shipping Australia-wide. They do loads of work within the gaming community. They help us out immensely with our Brisbane game days. And they've even helped us pull off some great pranks against other podcast members. Head over to 2d6games.com.au and check them out today.
All right, rolling on to the next part of the show. We've got the board game bracket, as usual, sponsored by Game Toppers. Make sure you check out their upcoming Kickstarter for Game Toppers. They have incredible mats, game toppers, faux tables, and stuff like that. So make sure you do check it out. But let's get to the all-important Victor. So we had none other than Crokinole versus A Feast for Odin. Mitch, which one came out on top? No cheating?
It's going to be Feast for Odin every day of the week. 9 times out of 10, Feast for Odin. Great game.
Crokinole's the oldest game in the bracket. But I think that...
It is the oldest game in the bracket.
It's got it.
It did. Feast for Odin won very, very comfortably. So that moves on.
In your face, Damo.
Yeah, that moves on. That's right. Just
in your face, 18th century man that invented Crokinole.
Some poor bloke's been sitting around. It's like, I haven't invented a game. Meanwhile, like Uwe's sitting there, like with his various spreadsheets, and he's going through like a madman. He's got all the strings going.
I've been really trying to get hold of some,
and he's going, "Yo, yeah, Feast for Odin."
I've been trying to get hold of some of the Crokinole community to get hold of the world champion to try and get to have a chat with him about it, but it's really hard people to get hold of, man.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to chat to them. They are incredible. I watched a couple of the world champions playing.
Practicing.
Yeah, it's on the phone, one-handed playing.
I still think it's like geriatric air hockey. Anyway, our next one, actually, Mitch, I'm too excited for this one. How about you, seeing as you're a bit of a... Oh, no, actually, that's not true. I think it's going to be 2 against 1 here, because our next battle is myself, I believe, solo representing Root, against Aeon's End. So which one of you two knuckleheads is going to put on the gloves and go against me for Aeon's End?
You only like Root.
I think
it's
one syllable. I've played both games.
Root. You go Root. Both. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sick of you making fun of me, you jerks.
It's only one syllable. You'll still mispronounce it. But I'll stop this shenanigans. I've played both Root and Aeon's End, so obviously I'm the best person to judge this competition. It's a tight race. I got to say, this is going to be a tight race. Both of these games are really, really good. Obviously, very different. I think Aeon's End is one of, if not probably the second best deck builder behind Undaunted. But it's a game that brought me back to deck building, because I had done the Dominion and the Clank and the Marvel Legendary and went, I don't ever need to play another deck builder again. And then after Sarah pumped it up so much, I thought I'd go to give this a go. And it takes that deck building to a special place. So it's really, really good. On the flip side of that coin, Root is probably one of the best, if not the best, asymmetric war games available on the market. With all the expansion content and everything, it just blows up to the point where there's so much you can put in there. There's so much variety you can have with the different factions. And I know the times I've played it, it's always come down to the last round where everyone's basically got a chance to win. So yeah, I just think it sort of hits that spot. It may have a little bit of a learning curve to get into at the start, in terms of learning other factions and how they play. But once you sort of get over that hump, it's something I think that everyone can get into. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a tight one. Over to you guys.
Well, age before beauty. So, Adrian, you go first.
Okay, well, I actually really like both games, but I'm not very good at Root because I don't play it enough. And they are both very different, like Mitch said. They are both incredibly different. But Aeon's End is my intro into deck building. So for me, I only know Aeon's End, and I haven't had that getting sick of playing Dominion and 12 different boxes of Dominion and all that sort of stuff in the past. So it still excites me. We've just finished the Aeon's End Legacy like now the first one. I'm really excited to get the second one, which is I think shipping at the moment. Like it's starting to appear in the States and stuff, and starting to see the game around the place. I think it's phenomenal. I think they've got a great system. The system works really well. I think it's also the legacy one probably is the best one to start with for newcomers, but it's not overly complex to play any of the other games at base, and even like teach that to somebody and play it. I think it works best at 2 as well. I think I feel like it's too long with the other one, with it playing 3 and 4, with the wild card for the third player, and you choose who gets to turn. I just prefer it with the back and forth as a 2-player game. But yeah, Root is a phenomenal game. I won't take anything away from it. I love how balanced it seems, considering everything is so different. I have only played the base factions. I've never played the other ones, so I can't speak for the other factions, but I've seen them played. I've been in games where other people have played them. I think Jules played the ones that had the little bombs. What are they called, Conor?
Yeah, he played the Corvid conspiracy.
And Def played the moles.
Def played as he played as the otters, the river folk.
The otters,
so they were river mercenaries. They're very cool to play as, and very, very cool.
Yeah, but I loved all of that. I love how, and I mean, everyone knows this. I love the Vagabond. I think it's the best hero for me to play. If I ever get to play the game, that's the one I'm going to pick every single time. Not only because it's the one that I know, but it's just the style of game I prefer to play. I don't care about dudes on the map. It's just not my thing. I'd rather just have my one hero and do my little challenges and focus on that. But yeah, I feel like it has something for everybody as well. Like, you know, people who like to build and stuff, they can be the cats and they can spread out and build the bases and do all this other stuff. And people that want to set traps and be mysterious and mischievous and annoy everybody, they can be, did you say Corvid Alliance? Is that what you said? The bird, the ones that have the bombs?
Corvid conspiracy.
Conspiracy. You know? Then you've got the birds. Yep. The birds are just insane. Like that pre-programming where you're programming the cards and make it, it's so clever. It's a really good game. But yeah, I think both of these games have huge fan bases and huge followings for completely different reasons. So it could go either way.
Yeah, and I think, I think this is Root's revenge tour. Like, I think it was unceremoniously dumped from the last competition, thanks to one Stephen Bonacore. But I think you're right, and I'd have to agree with Mitch in saying that deck building had really at some point just become a stale mechanism for me. However, there's a lot of games out there now that have deck building in them that might not be as in-depth as Aeon's in, but there's still some deck building. So I still get that fix. So I don't feel like I need to play that, whereas no game gives me the same fix that Root gives me. Like, every time I open up, it just promises so much and it delivers. And, you know, people could say, oh, you know, well, you can get caught behind, but you can play for dominance. And, you know, if you think you've mastered a faction, then you can play one of the new ones. And like you said, Adrian, there's just so many, and Mitch said the same thing, so many different factions now. So, and there's one coming in the mail to me soon, and I can't wait to use it because it helps with 2-player games. So that means 2-player games become more viable. This is still, you know, as I said last year in our top 10s, it's still one of my top. I think it's top 3 game. And I don't think it's ever going to be shifted from that.
It is incredibly hard, though. Incredibly hard to teach. Like, you can't. It's really hard to be like, we're playing a game. Like, we're all just going to sit down and learn and play Root. Let's go. Like, you have a massively huge advantage. Do you know what I mean? Because you've played it a dozen or so times. I know a lot of games have that, but Root just seems to be one of those games where if you've got a little bit of knowledge, it goes so far in winning that game. You know, it's not like a Euro game where like, oh, I've played it once, I'll do a bit of a teach. Like, Root's very much like, well, I know how to play this. You don't. I'm going to kick butt, basically.
But it's also a war game, so you know you don't play it for everyone to sort of. I mean, you play it for everyone to have a good time, but and there can only be one winner. Whereas like with lots of Euro games, you can have that satisfaction of setting out, and your goal might be to come first, but you can still achieve that goal. Whereas with Root, the whole aim is for only you to achieve your goals. So I mean, it's a bit different, and you know, people always say, "Oh, but it's so you know, it doesn't the art doesn't convey that, but it's a war game. Like that's what it is. So. But it's not up to us. It's up to you guys. Make sure that you vote on Instagram, Facebook, and on our Discord as well. They'll be going up shortly after the episode airs. And that leaves us with our oaths. But before we get to our oaths, I just wanted to give a quick plug to our community. So if you want to support this podcast, you can always go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue, sign up and donate to get exclusive podcast episodes that we record just for our patrons. Remember, we never want you to contribute to the Patreon or donate if doing so is going to cause you financial hardship in any way. In fact, there are plenty of ways to support the podcast without donating. You can go to Apple Podcasts and leave a star rating and a review for us, or Spotify's new star rating. It only takes a couple of seconds of your time, but it means the world to us. You can also get involved in the Board Game Barbecue community by joining our Facebook community, following us on Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. And of course, there is our lovely Discord community where there's always games and conversations going on. Get involved to support the show. All the notes in the show links. And I do have to give a shout out to our patrons. You mean the world to us. We're so thankful for your support, and we love your feedback and the questions you give us in the Sizzling members on Discord. It's been great. Hey guys, it's Conor here from the Board Game Barbecue podcast. I just want to take a sec to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Advent Games. Dean and his team are an amazing bunch of people who run an incredible website that's heavily curated into different categories. You'll definitely find what you're looking for. With a $10 flat rate shipping all around Australia, you really can't go wrong. And if you enjoy coming to our game days, Dean and his team at Advent directly support the Sydney Game Day as well. So please, if you've got some spare time and some spare cash, go and check out adventgames.com. But with that, we'll close out our show with everyone's most stressful section, the oath. So who would be my first victim? I think Adrian is going to be my first victim. Come on, Adrian. Let's go. What do you got for us?
I said basically I was done with Hadrian's Wall. It ain't happening. I suck at the game. I don't understand it. But I've played it again since, and I seem to be getting a better grasp of it, and that's fine. Like, that's really cool. But it's not, it was kind of an oath that I did and just sort of like got lost by the wayside. I also have reached out to the community to play the Lord of the Rings game, which hasn't happened last week, but I am hoping to book in one night this week to give it a go and play it. It does seem really interesting. I've watched some videos about it recently just to see it, and the app integration thing looks, to be honest, it looks better than the one from Mansions of Madness, which is pretty cool. So, it's interesting to see app integration in different games. So, yeah, I'm going to give that a go. But my oath for this week is going to be a one that is a time-sensitive matter. I have a game night on Wednesday night, okay? And this is now Sunday night, right? And I've got 4 minis behind me that I have to finish before we play that game. So I'm going to try and do that. I'm going to try my best to paint those. And I did a little base coat on one of them, but the other 3 are just bare bones. But I have built them because part of those Kingdom of Death Monster minis are building them. So the reason why I want to do this is because we are going to fight this next boss, and after that, we are actually going to upgrade our armor sets and start to build different armors. So therefore, these like minis will become redundant. You start off with like a little loincloth, then you get like a skirt. These are the ones that have the skirt on. And I was like, I'm just so enamored with this game and how thematic it is. I want to have them finished so that we can play it and have like the minis upgraded to that level before we start to kit ourselves out of our individual armor sets. So I, Adrian Smith, intend to have the minis painted by Wednesday night and play with them on Wednesday night. So I've got 2 nights to do it. So
nice. Always love a good painting oath. Mitch, how'd you go, great man?
That's me. I achieved my oath. My oath was to play a little small box game called Harsh Shadows, which is a little one-day game. I was actually really impressed, actually. It's not going to blow your socks off or anything. It's not crazy out there, never seen before, or anything like that. But the way that it kind of plays into the theme, I thought it was really, really well done. So you're a spy, and you have to travel around the different locations, which are cards that you place out on the board, searching for clues and finding evidence to be able to then track down you're an investigator and you're trying to track down a spy, and convict them of whatever their crimes are. And at the start of the game, you take 3 evidence cards and you put them under a card so that you can't see it. And then you also put a red herring card, which is a piece of evidence that gets put under the red herring evidence card. So then you move around the board. There's all different actions and things that can take place as you're traveling around the different locations. You're collecting clues, you're collecting evidence, and you can spend clues to reveal evidence cards so that like as you go along, you know more and more about what you're trying to collect. And you also have to not have the red herring in your hand when you make the accusation, because the red herring is obviously, it's thrown you off the scent. You've done the wrong thing. So you're trying to work out which card is the red herring. You're trying to learn what all the evidence is that you need to collect. And there's also things that you can do, like if you do run into the spy or if you hit a bomb, then you have to spend cards from your hand in order to overcome those challenges. So there's this whole kind of thing when you don't know what all the evidence are, you don't want to spend cards from your hand, because if you discard a card that's in the evidence, then you're totally going to wreck yourself in the thing. But yeah, so it's a pretty simple little card game, but the mechanics are really cool, and that sort of theme of trying to find, collect the pieces of evidence from around the city in order to convict the felon. It kind of works. I really like it. So for a little box, it didn't get a lot of hype when it came out. I thought it was a good little game, one that can carry. My next oath will be that I have Marvel United X-Men.
Oh, I did see that huge box of minis you got.
I did. It already kicked me in the butt, that game, because it arrived and I had absolutely nowhere to put it. So I had to I went through and did a massive clean out, and I sold a whole bunch of games. Shout out to Tayroy, who bought like 20 of my games in one go. So thanks, buddy. I owe you one. So now have room to put that game on my shelf. And I do intend to get it out at some point and play the game, because I actually really like Marvel United solo. I think I might enjoy it more solo than I do playing it multiplayer.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I'm going to...
Have you got a favourite X-Men?
Yeah, I do, but I'm a little bit cliche because I'm a Wolverine guy from way back.
Yeah, I'm Cyclops, so I'm no better.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I love Rogue.
Wolverine before Wolverine was cool, but...
Oh, I wonder why you like Rogue. Yeah, I wonder why.
Steals all the powers.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
cool.
The powers. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. So I do like Wolverine. Although I've never really liked Wolverine in video games and board games and things, because Wolverine's whole thing is the healing factor, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when you're playing a video game and you'd be running along and it's like, oh, Wolverine's been killed, you're out, game over. I'm like, what are you talking about, game over? It's never game over for Wolverine.
Yeah.
I'm getting right back up again. I'm keeping going.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So yeah, but I did like Berserker Barrage. So my oath.
Yep, gotcha.
My oath will be, I will swear, I, Mitch Keddy, swear that by the next time I'm on the podcast, which hopefully is not for a while because I've been like 3 in a row, I will have played Marvel X-Men United.
Very good. Well, my oath was to play through Zapotec, which is actually, well, I thought it was going to be fun, so I was super keen to play it. But so Zapotec is from Board and Dice, who make amongst other things, but the big ones, Teotihuacan and Tekenu, and they're not super accessible, right? There's a couple of layers to them. It can get a bit confusing, and there's a few different things to manage. But the cool thing with Zapotec is you take 5 turns. That's it. You have 5 turns in the whole game. And your turn is based on the card that you play. So the main idea behind it is to build these different constructions, and not the big not the big pyramid that you see on the front. That's like that's what they call a capital action that you can take at the beginning of your turn. But because the main scoring is based around the location that you play your village, your fields, your villages, and your temples in, and they can only go to a specific place. And depending on the card you play, you might only be able to build a certain temple, a certain building type. You might only be able to build a certain in a certain area, which are based on like 3 of the Mesopotamian. Not Mesopotamian, sorry. I'm trying to think now. It's like the Mesoamerican. I think they're like deities. And please correct me if I'm wrong if you've got any more information than I have. Or Mitch is nodding. Or the terrain types. So, for example, you might have a card that will let you only build temples, but you can build temples in any terrain type or in any of the 3 locales, or you might only want to build in a particular locale, so you can build any building or any terrain, and then the scoring conditions at the end are based on which, it might be which terrain type or which building type or which locale you have the most, or someone has the most buildings in. But the other cool part about this is once you build, you take a trade, well, not a trade tile, but you take a tile and you place it down into a tableau. And then when you get resources, you can customize which resources you get based on which row or column you take from. So even though when you play the card and it says, well, you are going to take brick this time, you're going to take from the brick column or the brick row, but in that column or row, you might have several other resources. So you can start to customize what your tableau looks like, and then you can start to have some of these really, really cool turns. I didn't want to play against a solo bot. I played 2-handed solo so I could try 2 different strategies. So I tried 2 different strategies as opposed to playing as a solo bot, which would do its own thing and maybe block me. And I was like, this is really cool. I could really see this becoming a bit of a really hectic or rushing to try and claim certain temples or certain terrains or certain areas to block other players. So if you're interested in, I guess it's not area control. I guess it's a little bit of area majority. But if you're interested in that, and you're semi-interested in those other board and dice games, but you're not that keen to get into the heavy side of them, I suggest when you can get your hands on it, grab Zapotec, because Adrian, I don't believe it's out yet. Is it? Is it
not out yet?
No,
it's coming soon.
So it's
very.
Soon. And I
think that's their plan, is that gap in their market, because they don't have anything that's below like a 3.5 or whatever. They're trying to get something that's like a 2.5. It's more accessible for things like game days and just a random game night. And then people might potentially enjoy that and go, you know what, let's just try a Teotihuacan or try something else. But Zapotec looks great. The components look great as well. It looks really cool.
And the board's quite bright, and it's set, like I said, in that Mesoamerica. The people think of the Aztecs and the Incans and things like that. So that's quite appealing to lots of people. So that's my oath. Now, I do admit I do have an outstanding Secret Santa oath, and that's to play London, Great Western Trail. So I still need to do that. But I'm also hoping at some point in the mail before I'm on the show next that Dead Reckoning comes in the mail. So Dead Reckoning is the next game from John DeClaire that uses the same system Mike was talking about in what's it called? Oh my goodness, I've had a brain fart. There's the transparent card. Yeah.
Oh my god, I've had a brain fart.
Mike, I'm so sorry. Yeah. John DeClaire.
It sounds like a game Mike would play, to be fair.
True. Anyway, the system where he uses the transparent cards, but it's got pirates and you fight other pirates, and I can't wait to play it. So I'm going to do a double banger, even though I was successful. So I could advance swear, but the next time on the podcast, I will have played through Great Western Trail, Great Western Trail for Mitch, and I will hopefully, fingers crossed, have played through Dead Reckoning as well. So, hey, excellent! Look at us, 3 from 3. Wow. Quiet, Adrian. It's 3 from 3.
Yes, it is 3 from 3.
Oh, wowzers. And I reckon that will about wrap us up. Once again, thank you to Matty Aslin for joining us. He is an absolute joy to have on the show, and we wish him all the best for his upcoming Drop Bears campaign. Thanks again, lads. Always a pleasure with you two.
Always, mate.
Always is. Let's do it again sometime in about 4 weeks.
Where did you get your own time? And that's it from us. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening, and hope your next game is a sizzling one. Bye.
Bye.
Hey.
Now we just got to,
Don't know the rules
for a little while, so we can don't know the rules.
Connor's would be
This is,
can't pronounce the game.
Can't remember the game.
Yeah. Secret Santa content for Dan. There you go, Dan. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Did I say Secret Santa content?
Welcome to the Board Game BBQ, the only podcast where it's a prerequisite to mispronounce games. You've got Conor here with me, and I'm sorry, that was shit. I'm going to start again. All right, have fun with that, Dan.